Thank you very much. That's a very ambitious expectation of what I'm going to talk about, but I'll try and do my best. I should say that I'm also standing here on behalf of Geneviève Pons. She is the director of the European Policy Office, and I'm saying this also to indicate that the organizers have made serious attempts to address the unfortunate gender imbalance of the panel. When I was sitting over there and listening to the presentations, I was wondering what I could do to keep your attention after a long morning of very interesting presentations and discussions. Unfortunately, I couldn't come up with anything. However, I should say that I think discussing the Belton Road Initiative in the context of financing for sustainable development is very exciting for two reasons. The first one is this one. In the 3 years, 2013 to 2015, about 76 billion US dollars was raised for ODA finance, official development assistance. 2013 was also the year that the Belton Road Initiative was first announced. Now, in the 3 first years of its inception, so the same period of time as this 76 billion US dollars was raised for ODA, for Belton Road Initiative related programs and projects, around 800 billion US dollars was raised, according to some estimates. So it is a significant amount of money. So that's one reason why I think it is important to discuss the Belton Road Initiative in this panel. The second one is this one. Countries should deepen cooperation in environmental protection, intensify ecological preservation, and build a green Silk Road. This is a statement by President Xi Jinping of China. He is the initiator of the Belton Road Initiative, and this indicates that there may be really high-level interest in working towards greening the Belton Road Initiative, working towards making it more sustainable. Okay, so let's have a look at what the Belton Road Initiative is. For one reason or other, a number of statements of the last few weeks have come out from high-ranking Chinese officials and official sources that link the Belton Road Initiative to music. It's not a solo song, but a chorus. It is a Chinese solution to global economic blues, a symphony of all relevant parties. And these are all official quotes. I think the two themes that come out of these are collaboration and, of course, China. It is an initiative that originated in China, and they emphasize in its descriptions collaboration. Now, for me, the key word is big. It is an incredibly big initiative. It is involving huge investments and funds, as we've just seen. It covers a huge geographical area. It started off by 60-odd countries, and it's already expanded way beyond that. The first forum, sort of international conference about the Belton Road Initiative, which took place indeed a few weeks ago, included countries from Latin America as well. It has very high-level political backing, and it's developing incredibly fast. The objectives of the Belton Road Initiative relate to increasing connectivity between China, Asia, Europe, increasing trade, political collaboration, policy cohesion, and so-called people-to-people exchange. However, what they all reflect is really a geopolitical shift, a shift that is gathering momentum, I think, on a daily basis. So in that sense, I think we're witnessing a really important historic process that's taking place, and of which the Belton Road Initiative is both an expression, but also a tool to make that shift happen. Now, I think there's a number of risks, but also opportunities associated with that initiative. Risks and opportunities from the lens of WWF, from the lens of conservation and sustainable development. If we focus on infrastructure for a bit, I'm aware that the Belt and Road Initiative is much broader, but in reality a lot of the investment and attention is being paid, at least at this stage, to improving infrastructure and investing in infrastructure. In some discussions and some publications, there is talk of corridors, 6 land-based corridors and 1 sea-based corridor. Now, WWF did a very quick and dirty analysis of how these 6 corridors may overlap with issues that are of concern for us. And I think you may have seen already one of the maps that we produced on the basis of that analysis this morning in an earlier presentation. But I want to show you some of these maps that indicate how, for example, these corridors overlap with distribution areas for threatened species. The more red the color, the more significant the area is, or the more significant the overlap is between distribution patterns for threatened species and the corridors of the Belt and Road Initiative. So we did that for threatened species, for priority areas for conservation, areas that are important for biological conservation, officially gazetted protected areas, but also we looked at ecosystem services, in this case the ones that are linked to water provision. And we looked at areas that still have a wilderness character. That's basically areas that are not disturbed yet by habitation, infrastructure, fragmentation. And then we sort of added it all up and produced a map indicating the overall impact that Belt and Road infrastructure may have on a number of these conservation-related priorities. Now, rather than taking this map as an indication of where one should and should not construct infrastructure, it is really an indication of a way of thinking about planning and discussing infrastructure. There's lots of qualifications you can place on this map, and it is certainly also an incentive to delve deeper into more specific countries and areas to identify similar concerns at a much more detailed and localized level. But really it does indicate a way of thinking and where some of our concerns may be. This is only reflecting sort of concerns related to biodiversity, conservation. There are other issues at stake. For example, possible export of dirty industry using the Belt and Road Initiative, or the export of outdated technology as part of the Belt and Road Initiative. Also the issue of natural capital. Is the natural capital in a certain area taken sufficiently into account in discussions and decisions about the Belt and Road Initiative? You'll hear more about that in the session this afternoon, about how you can actually use natural capital approaches to bring in the value of natural capital in decision making on infrastructure. Okay, there's also opportunities. Because if you talk about infrastructure, it's not only about badly planned roads, it's also about, for example, renewable energy. It's about ecological infrastructure, corridors. So we also very clearly see opportunities for the initiative to direct funding towards issues that we think are squarely fitting with Sustainable Development Goals. Now, what would you need to do actually to green the Belt and Road Initiative, to minimize negative impacts and to maximize positive impacts? It may be useful to look at it at sort of 4 different levels. And in doing so, one would then also stimulate that the Belt and Road Initiative contributes to the Sustainable Development Goals. 4 levels, as I said. The first one is sort of look at the system level, the concept of the initiative. How would you be able to articulate that in terms of sustainable development? How would it look like if it would fit in squarely with the Sustainable Development Goals? Or take another concept, ecological civilization. It's one of the pillars of the development in China. How would you express the initiative, the Belt and Road Initiative, as part of that ecological civilization concept? So really think about how they fit together. Then there is the level of the sector, the energy sector, the transport sector. Really, how do you want to see that sector develop in the next 10, 20, 30 years? And there's a number of issues that is relevant there, that you make sure that environmental considerations are being upstreamed. That means taking it into account as early as possible in the decision-making process, and that they're mainstream, so that it's not environment here, economic development there, but that they're integrated, that environmental considerations are integrated in development planning. Securing natural capital, as I already gave an example, greening finance, the finance that backs up the development and the infrastructure, is another area of work that contributes to sector level planning. And then of course the third level is project level planning and implementation. We need to make sure that that is taken place according to the highest level of standards for environment social safeguards. It needs to include social environment impact assessments, etc., etc. So there's an important role at that level as well. And then the fourth one is governance and transparency. And I'd like to spend a few more words on that one, because the Belton Road is not only sort of a technocratic initiative to implement infrastructure. It is a much broader initiative, and it has much broader governance and transparency implications. I'd like to go back for that to draw parallels with the collaboration between China and Africa, and in particular the Forum for China-Africa Collaboration, which has been going on for the last 10, 15 years or so. And WWF has been following and engaging with that process as well. And to some extent, the BRI has been modeled on China's experiences in the context of China-Africa. In terms of governance, I'd like to pick out two issues. One is the importance of stakeholder engagement and transparency, so that stakeholders have access to information. Engaging stakeholders throughout the process at all levels is incredibly important to make sure that there's ownership over the process and over the decisions, which will increase the quality of the decision making and the quality of the decisions, and that in turn will increase the chances that they will actually be implemented as per the objectives that were set out for them. The other aspect in the China-Africa experience is the following. It is actually a bazaar. It is a process where countries and stakeholders are being played out against each other. Contracts go to the highest bidder, the ones that have the best facilities on offer. There is insufficient sort of collaboration and coordination, and the same risk exists for the Belt and Road Initiative, that it is really, although there is sort of an overarching a program to which everybody subscribes, that in reality there's a lot of sort of bilateral negotiations going on, which might not be the best for the overall objectives of the program and for the chances of it to collaborate, to contribute to sustainable development. So in conclusion, we are seeing rapid changes in the geopolitical situation. Belt and Road is part and parcel of that, and it's very exciting to engage with that. It is something that's too big to ignore. It generates investments that will determine a course of action for decades to come. There are opportunities for greening the Belt and Road Initiative. I referred to this high-level statement at the beginning of the presentation. Ministry of Environment Protection in China has issued, in a short period of time, guidance for greening the Belt and Road Initiative, an action plan for greening the Belt and Road Initiative. There's a coalition being established between the Ministry of Environment Protection and UN Environment. All international organizations are invited to join that coalition. China is pushing for green finance in the G20. However, these sort of initiatives all need to be translated in very concrete action on the ground. They should be integrated in mainstream BRI planning and implementation. Because I think we all know that infrastructure that's badly planned and implemented is bad for nature, bad for people, and eventually also bad for the investors. With that, thank you very much.